Marianne Williamson is live.
Hey, everybody. I'm so excited that you're here tonight. This is the last night of our phase one of candidates for the down ballot progressive summit. We'll be going for a few days and we'll come back. I have some other candidates to introduce to you as well. I hope you've been enjoying the week. I hope you've been enjoying meeting all these incredible candidates. And tonight we really have a special woman that I want to introduce you to. This is the deal. In the race that we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the 5th District of Tennessee, the incumbent, who is the opponent of the candidate I'm going to be introducing you to, has been in that job for 24 years. And America has changed. And the House of Representatives, as we talk about so much here, was called by the founders the People's House because they thought it would be the farmer and the tailor and the blacksmith. In other words, the people. And we don't have enough of the people in Congress. And I think, once again, this whole idea of concentrating on these down ballot races, you get to know the presidential candidates, but too often we don't even know who our people are who are running for our congressional seats. And sometimes we don't even know the people who are running for Senate. And also, as we keep stressing this week, somebody might not have anything to do with your district or even your state, but they're still going to be voting on issues that affect your life. So I want to get right to it tonight and introduce you to a woman that I'm really happy to have here with you. Her name is Keendra Hayes, and I want Keendra to come into the Zoom room right away so that I can introduce you to her. Hi, Keendra, how are you? Oh, I think we need to unmute you.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Marianne. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here. Keendra, I hope that people have looked at that incredible video of yours. I have posted it on my social media several times. No one can tell your story better than you. You live in your very cells, the best and the worst of America. You have seen, you have known, the word information, you have been informed, not just intellectually, but on a cellular level. You know what is wrong with America and you know what is right about America. And the very fact that you live in the triumph and the glory and the victory of what is right says a lot. I'm assuming about some family members of yours too. I always go to the must have had the right mother, but that's we can talk about that privately. I can only assume it. Tell everybody your story, Keendra, because it is the story of modern America in too many ways. Certainly no one can tell it better than you. Tell everybody the story.
All right. So, Marianne, I want to say again, thank you for inviting me to be on tonight, and thank you for your endorsement. It has meant a lot to me and to my team to get that endorsement and just to be able to let people know who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing what we're doing. And so I do thank you for that. And I thank you for not just for me, but for all of the other candidates that you have endorsed as well too. Because because like you said, sometimes people do forget about the ones that are running on the down ballot. So my name is Keendra Hayes, and I am here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I am running for U.S. Congress here in District 5, which consists of Davidson County, which Nashville is in Davidson County, Dixon County, and Cheatham County. And before I decided I was going to run for Congress, I worked as a public defender here in Nashville for 6.5 years. But prior to becoming a public defender, I served almost 4 years in federal prison as 000-17011 for a crime that I didn't commit. When I was in college, I met a guy who told me that he had a business here in Nashville, and he lived in Memphis, but said that they had a family business here in Nashville, and it was a Beepers Plus shop. And so I say Beepers Plus, and it ages me a little because no one really knows what beepers are anymore. But they had beepers and they sold cell phones. And he said that no one would be at the shop when FedEx would deliver the packages, and he asked if I would sign for the packages, and his cousins would pick them up and take them to the shop. And so I agreed to accept the packages. He paid me $50 a box. He told me again that, like I said, it was going to contain cell phones and pagers, but turned out that the packages contained marijuana. So myself, along with 28 other people, were indicted in federal court in the Middle District of Tennessee. Everyone pled guilty except for me because I refused to plead guilty for a crime that I didn't commit. And I chose to actually put the government to their burden of having to prove every single element of the offense. And I was actually punished for doing that because initially, when we got close to the trial, and I would say maybe about a month or 2 weeks before trial, they had offered plea bargains along the way, and I refused to take them. And a couple of weeks before trial, they offered something else that I would serve 34 months in federal prison, but I refused to do it because I just did not think that people that were not guilty would ever be convicted and would ever have to go to prison. So we went to trial. My trial lasted a full week. They called in every single person that they could ever call in to talk about my case, talk about the situation. Nobody ever said that I knew what was in the packages. Actually, to the contrary, people said that no one ever told me that the packages contained marijuana and that they lied to me about what was in the packages. The government used everything that we would think would be positive against me. I was in school majoring in criminal justice and psychology at the time. I was on the dean's list. So they used that against me to say that I should have known and had some kind of belief that studying criminal justice that you learn about conspiracies and how to commit crimes, which that's just so far from the truth. They used the fact that I had never been in any trouble before at all. They used that against me as well. And used the fact that I, was from a middle class home in Franklin. They used all of those things. So we would really think that these would be great things, and we praise people for these things, but they used all of those things against me. The jury, they acquitted me of 6 of the charges and found me guilty of the lesser included charge of aiding and abetting a conspiracy to distribute 100 to 400 kilograms of marijuana. And that's generally a mouthful, but I'm just so used to saying it, it just rolls off of my tongue. And so that amount triggers the mandatory minimum sentence in the federal system, which is 5 years. So I don't know if anybody is familiar with the mandatory minimum sentencing laws in the federal system, but it's there for drug offenses, and they have some that are also there for some white collar offenses and some gun offenses. But mainly you hear about the mandatory minimum sentencing laws when it comes to drug offenses. And most people probably are aware of them because of the crack cocaine and powder cocaine. We used to have a 100-to-1 ratio. That's been changed some over the years. But so those are the mandatory minimums. And it essentially said that the judge could not go below that you could not get anything less than what that mandatory minimum was. And there are a few ways that you can, but generally that's just the way that it is. So at my sentencing, the judge actually sentenced me to 7 years in prison, which it's 84 months is what she told me, which is 7 years. And she told me that any person of my intelligence should have known that I was dealing with something highly illegal, and that I was lucky to have been acquitted of all of the other charges. And so she sentenced me to 84 months in federal prison, someone who had never been in trouble at all, had never had a speeding ticket, never been to jail, nothing. Someone who was in their last semester of school, majoring in criminal justice and psychology, on the dean's list, someone who came from, a family with both parents, all of those things, again, things that we would think that would be good things. She told me that she did not take me into custody then. She told me she would let me stay out until I graduated, because like I said, I was in my last semester. So I graduated from college with a degree in criminal justice and psychology, December of 2002. And January of 2003, I had to report to Alderson Federal Prison Camp to start serving a 7-year sentence at that time. My attorney appealed my case, and so I still have my appellate rights because I chose not to plead guilty. So we appealed my case, and we had to appeal my case all the way to the Supreme Court. The United States Supreme Court actually granted the appeal, and they remanded the case back to the Middle District. So I had to come back to the Middle District in order to be resentenced. At that time, I had probably served maybe about 2 years in prison, close to 2 years. So we thought that I would be going home then, but I did not go home. The judge told me then that I had gotten everything that I would ever get from prison, but because of the mandatory minimum sentencing law, she had to send me back. So I had to go back to prison for another 18 months. And I was finally released from prison after serving almost 4 years, 3 years and 10 months on December 1st of 2006. So I came back home to Nashville, and I started working with my attorney as his legal secretary. And I worked with him as his legal secretary, and I enrolled in law school here in Nashville, Nashville School of Law in 2008.
Hold on. I need you to stop right there. I have so many questions to ask you.
Okay.
Also, I want everybody listening, because you can see where the story is going, because this woman's running for Congress. And I want to make sure that you know what her website is, so that you can hopefully contribute to her campaign tonight. She is Keendra Hayes, KeedraHaynes.com. Please
Yes.
go there now, and please give what you can. I want to go back, Keendra.
Okay.
How, and this is a very personal question, how were you not eaten up with anger and a sense of injustice? Was it your mother? Was it your father? Was it your family? Was it your God? How did you come out of that? Obviously, it's wonderful that the lawyer gave you that job, but what it took within you to dwell in victory and then to go to law school. I think that your story of your psychological, emotional, and spiritual victory here is the victory that you were given, because obviously, according to man's law, you were done wrong.
Right.
But God's law has lifted you up, and to deny the power of what has happened within you, despite what was happening outside. And I know there are many people watching tonight who'd like to hear about that as well.
Okay, so I was angry and filled with rage at the system, because just because of the way that I was treated, the prosecutors came after me as if I was some big drug kingpin moving marijuana, drugs, cocaine, everything.
They know that you weren't. Did they actually know that you weren't?
Oh, they absolutely knew that I was not.
Why did they do it, Keendra? What was?
You know, it's so interesting because, you know, I was charged with conspiracy, and one of the things that I say about the conspiracy charge is that it's a web. And so what they are able to do with these conspiracy charges is that they can get one or two people, and then they can cast that net so far. And because of the mandatory minimum sentencing laws, the people that are the ones that are bringing in all of the drugs are generally not the ones that get most of the time, because they have information and they can cooperate with the government, versus the other people on the other end, they have no information. And so these mandatory minimum sentencing laws, they really, first of all, we have a fictitious war on drugs. There was never a war on drugs. There's a war on Black and brown and low income people. That's what the war is, but there was never a war on drugs. And so we have this fictitious war on drugs here, and it is just sweeping up, I mean, all kinds of people from all types of communities. It was so unbelievable when I went to prison, the number of women that were in prison on conspiracy charges behind brothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, boyfriends, husbands. And so, and at that time, that's when we started to see the rise of women in incarceration, and large in part due to these conspiracy charges.
I'm familiar with the Women's Clemency Project, and this is often the case where the women who didn't even have anything to do with the original crime actually end up with greater, worse charges than the people who did it. First of all, I want to ask you, before we move on, I'm sorry to slow the story down, but there's so many.
Fine.
So the 28 people who pled guilty and got a plea sentence, what did they serve?
So the guys in California who were shipping the marijuana to Tennessee and Memphis and everywhere else, they got quite a bit of time. The guy that I was dating, I think he got 20 years. And so I think he got the most time because of the charge that he pled guilty to, which was a continual criminal enterprise, and that carries a mandatory minimum of 20 years.
Okay, so what happened inside you?
Right. So for me, I was really angry at the criminal justice system. I was angry at the way the U.S. attorney, the postal inspector, the U.S. Marshals, the local task force, just the way that they pursued me and the way that they came after me. They followed me home from jobs. I lost friends. all of these types of things. They even had the audacity to visit my great grandmother in the hospital who had just had surgery to remove colon cancer, to try to talk with her to see what she knew about the situation. It was unbelievable. They followed me to my lawyer's office. They threatened me. They told me that they were going to take my car, that it was proceeds of drug money. I mean, just all kinds of things. And I did not have any experience in the criminal justice system. The only lens I had to view this through was what we see on TV, and never saw this. So I was very angry at the way that I was treated in the criminal justice system. And even by the judge, the things that the judge said to me, I was very angry. So I was very angry. And when I went to prison, it was almost as if I was watching this happen to someone else. You know, sometimes we have things happen to us and we just cannot believe that it's happening. And so, right, it was almost as if like I was almost kind of like in a state of shock the whole time this was happening. And so maybe like a week or so after I was there in prison, I was sitting on the top bunk with one of the girls that I met, one of my friends. And the way that the prison is set up, in each unit, there were, I think, like 100 women in each unit. So we were on the top bunk in the very front, and I'm looking back over behind me and seeing just tons of beds and all of this stuff. And and I'm thinking to myself, like, I have 7 years. Like, how did I get here in federal prison? What am I going to do? Because I mean, when we're charting out our lives, nobody ever says, oh, well, I'm going to go to federal prison, and so this is how I'm going to prepare for it. There can be all kinds of books about what you need to know before you go to prison. And I mean, and all of that is just practical knowledge, but there is nothing that can ever really repair you mentally for what you are going to have to deal with when you are going to prison. You become a number. You are no longer your name. And it's a number that most people will never forget the rest of their lives. Again, I can rattle that number off the same way that I can rattle off my social security number. It's a number that I will never forget as long as I live. You are dehumanized. You are stripped of every single bit of humanity that you even have, and you essentially become a slave. And so I know most of us have seen the movie 13th, where it talks about the 13th Amendment and talks about slavery in prison. And it's true. It really is. We have absolutely no control whatsoever. We have to get up when they tell us to get up. We are counted like you go and count your sheep, and like you go and count your cows. We are counted. We have name tags that we have to wear. We have to go and eat at a certain time. We have to work. And it is prison labor, because I think at the jobs that I was working, I was making 12 cents an hour, but I am working Monday through Friday from 8:30 to 5 every single day, making 12 cents an hour. And sometimes that is all the money that people get, because some people don't have the support of their family. Because anybody that's been in prison will tell you that when you go to jail or prison, it's not just you, it's your family as well.
That's what I was going to ask you about. Tell me about your parents.
So my parents actually drove me to Alderson, West Virginia, and dropped me off. So from Franklin all the way to Alderson, West Virginia. So it was about a 12, 14-hour drive, and it's in the mountains. So it was a lot of snow. We got there late at night. They dropped me off at the gate, and with just my Bible and my glasses and a piece of paper that had phone numbers. So I did talk to my parents and, family and friends when I was there, but the telephone calls were expensive, and you only got, I think, 200, maybe 250 minutes a month that you could use. So you had to use your minutes wisely. And so the money came from your commissary account. So again, we're not making any money in prison. So families having to send you money to stay connected with them, and then also to be able to buy the personal things that you need when you're in prison. So prison becomes a financial hardship on families that have to support family members that are incarcerated. So I tried not to ask my family for much, and really just tried to get by on what I could. But yeah, I mean, it was really hard on them. It really was. Mm-hmm.
What kept you, I mean, your emotional journey, given everything that you just said, You come out, your lawyer gives you a job in his office, which is very,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and then you actually went to law school.
Mm-hmm.
Some people at that point would have been, I am so done with this system. I know how rotten it is. I know how corrupt it is. What happened inside you? What was your journey that you said, I'm going to go to law school and I'm going to be one of the warriors for justice? What's your story, Keendra?
So
By
for
the way, I don't
me,
want to take a minute without reminding all of you, it's KeedraHaynes.com, KeedraHaynes, right? .com. And you're going to hear about this race and why it's winnable. But I know that you, like me, want to know, how did this unfold? So tell us your process. You're going to go to law school now.
yes. So when I got out, I went to law school, but even before I went to prison, when I was majoring in criminal justice and psychology, because when I first went to college, I was going to be a criminal psychologist. And yeah.
That means
And
the criminal justice system.
right, exactly. And then I said that I was going to be a criminologist, but then I had to take a legal methods class, which essentially just consisted of briefing cases. And I had no idea what I was doing and did it once and did not do it well. And my teacher, Professor Woods, called me into his office, explained everything to me. And from that moment on, it just clicked with briefing cases became second nature, to the point where he had told me that one of the briefs that I submitted, that it was the best brief that he had ever had submitted to him the entire time that he had been teaching there at the school. And so it was just like, that was just how becoming a lawyer, that's just how it was birthed. It just clicked. It just fit with everything that I wanted to do. And so I was going to be a lawyer before I went to prison. And when I was in prison, I was studying for the LSAT, because I was not going to let the fact that I was in prison keep me from doing what I said that I wanted to do. So I studied for the LSAT when I was in prison.
I want
And
to take a moment to acknowledge the strength of character that it would take
thank you.
to be in prison and to say, I'm going to study for the LSAT.
Mm-hmm. I did. I helped some of the women in prison with some of their legal issues. And it was in prison where me wanting to be a public defender was birthed, because I'm listening to all of the women talk about their situation and their stories, and talk about their public defenders and how they didn't have good attorneys. And I had a really good attorney, but it wasn't a public defender. I was fortunate enough that my family was able to pay for a private lawyer. And so I'm listening to all of these stories from all of these women talking about how horrible their lawyers were. And, my lawyer, he set the bar up here. And I told myself that I wanted to be able to give that level of representation to people that couldn't pay for it, people that could pay $5 for it, $50 for it, 500, 5,000. I wanted to do that. And so and I wanted to change the narrative around who public defenders were. So it was almost like a personal mission
Right.
to, it was, and like I said, it was because of the women there and their stories. And it's just like, we can't let this happen. We cannot have attorneys that are out here that are supposed to be representing people that are doing the exact opposite and essentially contributing to mass incarceration. And so it was my mission to go out there and to be the best public defender that I could be, so that I could have a hand in stopping people from coming into jails and prisons because of what I had seen as a public defender. So that was what I did as a public defender. I went into the courtroom every single day, and I advocated on behalf of my clients. There's a power structure already in the court system that we all know of and are aware of. And one of the things that I would do with my clients in order to humanize them and to have all of us on the equal playing field is that I would tell my clients to call me by my name, that they didn't have to call me Miss Haynes, that they didn't have to call me Miss Keeta, that they could just call me Keeta. We are, here. And so the thing is that to let them know that I am not speaking for you. I am standing right beside you. We are equal. We are the same in this thing, and we are fighting this together. There's no big me and little you. We are one. We are in this thing together. And that was what I always wanted to be able to present when I went in the courtroom. And I don't really know what I was expecting when I went into the courtroom, but it was completely different, because I would speak, people would ask me to do speaking engagements, and people would ask me, why did I become a public defender? And so I would tell them, I am my client and my client is me. And so, but working in the public defender office and working in the court system, I started to realize that my client was not me, that there were so many barriers that my clients were facing that I didn't even face. And so even being a Black female, there were still certain privileges that I had that my clients did not have, simply because of their income. And so I really started to see this, and really started to see just another layer of injustices that people are experiencing, simply because, number one, of the color of their skin, but because of their income levels. So a lot of my clients were stuck in jail because they couldn't afford to make bonds. So they're in jail only accused of an offense, but because they don't have the money to make bond, they're still in jail. And so we all know that the cash bail system has contributed to mass incarceration. I think the sheriff said here at a hearing a couple of weeks ago that like 80 to 90% of the people that were in the jail were there pre-trial. That's a problem. That is a problem. We are having people that are in jail that are losing homes, that are losing jobs, that are losing children, and have not been convicted of anything. And so what happens is that you start to have a number of people that are pleading guilty to things that they didn't do just so that they can get out of jail and prison. There were numerous clients that I would have. I would come to them and tell them what the DA was offering, and their very first question was, am I getting out today? Will this get me out? And it's like, yeah, it's a probation sentence, fine, I'll take it, run it. Because they wanted to get out of jail and didn't have the money to do so. And so they're doing whatever they can in order to get out of jail. And I think in some situations, the DAs knew this and were actually using it to their advantage, and were actually offering people crappy sentences, knowing that people would take them because it's going to get them out of jail sooner. So just trying to fight that and bring light to that, and just so many different other injustices that my clients were experiencing.
So you were a public defender after serving you were in federal prison for 3 years and
3 years and 10 months, almost 4 years.
And then you get out, you go to law school. Then you become a public defender for 6.5 years.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Everybody, remember, you can go to the progressivecandidatesummit.com. You can see the donation page for all the progressive candidates there, including Keendra. Or you can go to Keendра's site at KeendраHayes.com. And hopefully all of that is written in the chat for you. Okay, when did it occur to you, or was this part of your plan all along, that thought, I want to run for office? And also, I want to give a little background about your district for just a moment, because I think a lot of you might not realize, because you think of Tennessee, you think of such a red state, but Nashville is blue. Mm-hmm. Nashville goes Democratic. You know, it's a lot like a lot of these cities. It's like Texas, you know, red state, but Dallas, Houston, and Austin are blue. You know, this is or Kentucky, what's going on right now, Louisville and Lexington are blue, the state is red. So this is the incumbent who is there, who has been there for 24 years, who is Keendra's opponent, is I think a conservative Democrat, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, he is.
Don't think that, oh no, Democrat could win. A Democrat is going to win. The issue is which Democrat is going to win. Okay, I just want people to get that little bit of background. So tell me, Keendra, when did it come up for you? I'm going to run for Congress. When did that happen?
You know, I have this conversation all the time with people, and I tell people that had someone asked me a year ago where I saw myself, I would not say running for Congress.
Really?
No, I would not. So working as a public defender, I started to realize that there were so many things that were going on in my clients' lives in the community that people were not dealing with. And then I was also very active in the community. And so with just speaking with people in the community, you're starting to see that there are other things that are going on in people's lives. People don't have housing. You know, people don't have health care. people don't have jobs, and nobody is caring. And particularly here in Nashville, because Nashville was just booming. Nashville, had become the it city, but it was only the it city for so many people. And for my clients and anyone else, that was Black, brown, or low income, like it was not the it city for them. It was not booming. So it was just like Nashville was taking off, but there were certain populations of people that were being left behind. And so I just started saying, I would tell my friends, my next position is going to be a position where I am able to help my clients and the community on a larger scale than what I am able to do now as a public defender, because I really just started to get boxed in, because it was as if like my eyes had been opened to there's so much more than this criminal justice system here. And I didn't believe that it operated by itself and siloed, that I believe that all of these things operated together. And so it was becoming really frustrating to me because I wasn't able to do that. So I was talking with a couple of my friends, and that's what we were talking about. And she was just like, you know what, I think you would be really good at this. This is what you should do. And, and I thought about it and really prayed about it. And it just, again, it was just something that just seemed to fit like the next step, the next part of my journey that I'm on here, as far as just being able to stand beside people, to be able to amplify their voices, to be able to, when you see an injustice, to be able to speak on it. And, and that's the thing, that's just always been my thing, is that, just speaking on the injustices that I have seen throughout my life. And so and I had said that I wanted to have a position possibly doing policy work, but what better way?
That's right. Actually, be elected. That's
right. Exactly. What better way to
actually have the level of power in your hands.
Right. To be able to advocate for these very things, and to run for office, and to be able to actually craft legislation around the very things that we have all been advocating for.
I had a very similar journey, in the sense that I worked with people who in their despair and their depression and their pain and suffering. And I saw, as the years went by, how many of the problems were systemic. That it wasn't just personal. It was because how much of it had to do with the fact that they didn't have health care, the fact that they couldn't get an education, the fact that they were burdened by those college loans, the fact that they were so economically locked out. And I began to realize this is because of bad public policy. And begin to realize you can pick up people in the depth of their despair over and over and over again. But at a certain point, we have to address the systemic issues that create so much despair. And that was
exactly. And that was the thing, because we talk about the recidivism rate in the criminal justice system, but again, we're not addressing all of these things that are bringing people into the criminal justice system to begin with. And like you said, it's all of these systems that have been designed and have been set up and have been put in place to keep people exactly where they are. And, I just find that, just throughout my life, I'm just the type of person that, when people say you can't, I say, yes, I can.
We need more American women.
Because people told me that I was never going to be able to become an attorney. People actually told me that I should not go to law school because they were never going to give me my license. And of course I had to go before the board because of that. And at the hearing, what they told me, they said, well, we usually send people letters in the mail about our decision. They said, and we'll send you a letter, but we're going to tell you right now, we're going to give you your license. And so it's all about, for me, and I was telling someone that I was talking to the other day, on this journey, for me, I just feel like that it's all about changing the narratives as well, because this is an opportunity for me to change the narrative around who we are as people that have been formerly incarcerated, because there's this stigma around people that have been formerly incarcerated.
Congress. That's one of the reasons that when we have 2.3 million people in Congress, and I mean incarcerated in America, and some of them belong there, and so many of them do not belong there. Obviously you were done wrong by a lot of people, but it's clear you were all also surrounded throughout your journey by some really wonderful people. I cannot even imagine the tears that were cried on the day of your graduation from law school.
Oh,
I
yes.
even imagine. All of you who are watching, I know that you are taking in how deep this story is and how important it is. Congress have more people who really understand and have lived the American experience. Somebody who's been there for 24 years. I mean, they've been in Washington for 24 years. We know we need people like Keendra, but if Keendra is going to get there, it's going to be because you and I help her get there. Go to
Yes.
summit.com, donate page, or go to KeendraHayes.com. I hope you're texting your friends right now and telling them to watch, to hear her. I hope you're putting all of this on your social media. Her film about her story is right on top on my own Twitter. I hope you're participating right now, and I can sort of feel energetically that you are. If it's okay with you, Keendra, I'm going to bring in a couple of people who said they want to ask you questions. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
that's fine.
The first one is a woman named Andrea Hawkins. So Andrea Hawkins, come with us into the Zoom room and unmute yourself, please. Hi, how are you? Unmute. Yeah, great. Hi, Andrea, how are you? Nice to meet you.
Nice to be here. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Ask away. You've got Keendra here with you.
I think that you're just so driven, Keendra. I had one question. I wanted to know, what do you, because this year has been really, really different, what do you suggest be done as far as education as we move into the next year, post-COVID? What do you think should be done? What do you suggest there?
Yeah, so with the education system, I think the education system was one of the systems that was hit really hard. And here in Nashville, we know that, there were, when it came to the education system, that it was our Black and brown and low income kids that were impacted the greatest by this, because school was out and the school system did not have a plan, and the school system actually did not have the funding to be able to supply the kids with laptops, computers, or any type of notebooks or any of those things. And so kids were out of school with no way to do any type of work. And then when the school finally figured out what they were going to do, they said, oh, well, this is not going to be mandatory. This is just something that the kids will be able to do if they choose to do. But the problem is that a lot of kids didn't have access to do the schoolwork. And again, kids had no computers, no notebooks or anything. And even if they did, some of them still did not have internet access to be able to do the schoolwork. And it was even to the point where I had spoken with some other people. They deal with the at-risk kids, and the school system was trying to just go ahead and extend the suspension or the expulsion of some of those kids. And we were just like, no, like that's unbelievable. Like, you can't do that. And so I think one of the things that we need to do as far as education is concerned is that first of all, we need to make sure that education is funded. And I think all across the country, we have so many education systems that are underfunded. And so we need to make sure that we are funding the education systems, and we need to make sure that all kids are able to have access, with computers, with laptops, with tablets, or any of those types of things. And that we need to make sure that every student is going to have access to the internet. And I know that when we get out into a lot of these rural communities, a lot of them don't have access to that. And again, in some of the urban communities, some of the kids didn't have access to it. They would go to the libraries. But with COVID, the libraries were shut down. Places where you could go and get on hotspots, everything was shut down. And so kids could not do the work. So we need to make sure that we are funding education and that we have these things available for the kids. But one of the things is that it's not just the kids that we need to make sure that have this. We need to make sure that the teachers have it, because we all know that teachers are definitely underpaid. And so we just can't take for granted that the teachers have their own access to the computers and to the internet as well too. And so we need to make sure that the teachers have that access. And we also need to make sure that the teachers are getting the training. So in the event that they have to do some type of online training again, because we don't know if we're going to have a second wave moving into the fall here. We don't know what's going to happen. We're taking everything day by day. And so we need to make sure that teachers are having the necessary training that they need, because I heard from several different teachers that they were quite frustrated because they were not used to having to teach online classes. And so I just think that, if we're going to talk about dismantling the school to prison pipeline, it starts with funding education.
Well,
we can't go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, as I have talked about, I'm blue in the face, I keep talking about this, we have millions of American children who don't even get taught to read by the time they're 8. And if you can't read by the age of 8, your chances of high school graduation are less than your chances of incarceration. And it's wrong when you talk about the funding. It's so wrong. It's so immoral that we primarily base our funding on property taxes. So there are so many children who are in economic lockdown. Even when people talk about more funding for historically Black colleges, I'm worried about these kids who are locked out of the system years before they could even think about going to college.
Exactly. And, you know, there's a lot of talk now about defunding the police, and you know there's different narratives about that. And so, and one of the things that they have done here, they've created a people's budget around that. And you know, people are just like, oh no, like we can't defund the police. And it's just like, but when we start looking at where the money is going, we have been defunding education, we have been defunding, you know, housing, we have been defunding infrastructure in our cities, we have been defunding every single thing in our city.
Corporations, prisons, and defense contractors.
Yes, exactly. And so what we need to do is that we need to divest that money and reinvest it into education, into housing, into the job market, into infrastructure, and into social services for our communities. That's where we should be putting our money at.
We put our money into brute force rather than soul force. And if we put more money into people, there would be less of acting out of the desperation that is understandable on the part of desperate people.
Exactly.
What do you do for a living, Andrea?
I am an educator. I am an educator.
Do you have any other ideas about things that should change that maybe Keendra should know about, the rest of our audience should know about?
I think she nailed it. I listened to her backstory, and I think that she's very passionate and driven, and I think that she needs to be in Congress. So definitely support her.
I can't imagine anybody watching who doesn't, Keendra. Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
I want to ask you a question, Keendra. What's the racial makeup of your district?
So our district it's predominantly white. I would think that we are probably 30 to 40% Black and the rest white, but it's very progressive. Our district is more progressive than people actually realize and give us credit for. And I think that that's where we're starting to see this movement, because we do have so many progressive people here in Nashville, and so many people that are ready for change and that have been calling for change. And the thing is that, again, you know, Jim Cooper's been in the seat for 23, 24 years, and people have been saying like, well, how is this possible? How is he still in the seat? And people have been calling for change for years, but there's no one that would step up to run against him, because again, he's a millionaire. He has all of this money. He has all of this name recognition. Exactly. His family, entire family is in politics, has always been in politics. And so people just always think that, you know, oh, well, like I can't go up against this political machine of Jim Cooper. But I just feel like that for me, I am the person that has, you know, I am not afraid of going up against systems. I am not.
After what you've been through, what's a politician? Really?
You know, I am not afraid of challenging systems. And so, you know, it's just like, I'm like, what do we have to lose here? You know,
this is such a pregnant moment in America. People are ready. We are experiencing what Lincoln talked about, a new birth of freedom. People know the old, it's not working. It's falling apart as we speak. We need to give birth to something new, and give birth to something new through people who bring forth something new, who have the consciousness of the new. And I think somebody who's been there for 24 years is part of it's a silo that you just can't possibly really understand what a lot of people are going through, and you have lived it, and that's people are understanding. But I want everybody who's watching now to know, unless we help people like Keendra, though, they simply can't get there. Go to progressivesummit.com, the donation page, or go to Keendra's page, KeendraHayes.com. I want to bring in our next questioner, but then after that, of course, I want to talk to you about what's happening today. But first, I want to say something, and this has to do with the racial makeup of your district. First of all, it's interesting about Nashville. It's a music capital. Music with a lot of creative people. Creative people tend to be more progressive thinkers. But obviously, your conversation about economic justice, et cetera, really does apply as much to white people as it does to black people. I'm sure that people understand that. Okay, Dwayne. Hi, Dwayne. Dwayne Jackson. Welcome. Welcome to the
Hi, how you doing?
Nice
Thanks for having me. Hi, Keendra.
Hey,
Ask
how are
away.
you?
You've got Keendra there. Ask her whatever you want to ask her.
Fantastic. Well, I love what I've heard so far. I love your strength, your tenacity. I tell you, you've been through a lot and you've overcome all these hurdles. You're a great advocate. I see that.
Thank
And
you.
with all that, why do you choose this office to run for? And after you win this office, what's the first thing you'd like to change?
Okay. So, we've kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I mean, the main thing that I would say is that, as a public defender, I went into the courtroom every single day and fought for my clients, in a broken racist system that wanted to strip them of every ounce of dignity and humanity that they had. And I fought for my clients each and every single day, and I refused to settle anything other than a just outcome from them, and was very passionate about what I was doing. And so I want to take that same passion to Washington to be able to advocate on behalf of not just my clients anymore, but all of the community here in District 5. And because I just feel like that so many of us have been locked out, we've been shut out, we've been silenced by a government that was designed and created that to be a representative of who we are. And I just think that it is time that we have someone in our district that is going to restore the power back to the people in our district, somebody that is really going to represent the people in our district, and somebody that is really going to fulfill the purpose of serving we the people in Washington, because that's what it's about. The politicians in Congress, they don't hold the power. It is the people in the community that hold the power. And
We vote though.
right. And we need to restore that power back to the community. We need to have people in Washington that are going to choose people over politics, people over corporations. And we are not seeing a lot of that in Congress. And so I want to be able to bring that back, and just to be able to stand alongside the people in District 5 to make sure that, I am helping to amplify their voices and making sure that their voices are heard.
Thank you. Thank you. That is why I'm telling my friends and my families to donate and vote.
Thank you. I appreciate
You're the
it.
change you're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Keendra, I want to know about what's happening now. First of all, I know your opponent did sign up for the Green New Deal, but he does not support Medicare for all.
No, he does not. He was actually, he did a forum, I think last week, and he was asked that question, what it would take for him to support Medicare for all. And his response was, oh, well, it's not that I don't support it. We just need to do something with healthcare now. And then he spent like the other 5 to 7 minutes talking about the Republicans in the Senate and how nothing could ever be done. And to me, that's just typical Jim Cooper. And I don't think that we should be focusing on what we can't get done. I think that we should be focusing on what we can get done. And we never know what we're going to be able to get done unless we try to do it. We can't make up excuses as to why we cannot do it. And we can't say that we don't have the funding for Medicare for all either, when we are spending almost $2 trillion, on the military, but we cannot fund Medicare for all. And then I also think that, for me, it just goes to show how out of touch he is with the community here in this district, because the number of people that we have without healthcare coverage is at an all-time high. And we can blame it on the fact that the governor did not extend Medicaid here. We can do that. Yes, we can. And that's a legitimate argument.
Unbelievable.
But if we had Medicare for all, that wouldn't even be an issue. And so it's just like, you say that you're not against this, but we need to figure out something that we can do right now. But yet here we are, like, that is right. That is what we can do right now, because you are in a district where the number of people who don't have health insurance, it's at an all-time high. And yet and still you're doing nothing about it, because you say that, the Republicans are never going to pass this. Well, you know what? We've got to do something. We can't sit along on the sidelines and just idly watch and just idly say, oh, well, because of the makeup of Congress, we can't get this done. Like, no, like, our people are demanding that we get this done. And as representatives representing people in this district, we have an obligation to get it done.
What about what's happening in America today?
We are in a different time. I've had several conversations with family and friends about where we find ourselves here in America, and what happened with George Floyd is what has been happening, and it is what we have known is happening. But now there is cameras and there's social media, and everybody is seeing all of the things that we have been talking about for years. And right now, we are angry. People are angry. People are frustrated. People are saddened. And people are really coming together, and people are demanding change. And I think that this is an opportunity that we can use that anger and that frustration and demand change, not just on the local level, but demand change from every single person that is in position of power, to say we are not going to stand by and allow business as usual to continue on. We are demanding justice. We are demanding equality. We are demanding that our voices be heard. And so while we're in, this time of, racial tension, it is comforting to see that this is not Black people that are just angry and upset, that this is white people, that this is Black people, that this is Latino, that this is, Muslim people, that this is Christians, that this is everyone that is outraged and that is calling for change. And so it's, for me, it's good to see that we are all united, and that we are all calling for change around these issues. But it's just like, this is something that is systemic. And we've got to deal with racism. No longer can we say we don't see color, because if somebody says that they don't see color, well, then they are denying my existence. And so we cannot say that we no longer see color. We've got to see color, and we've got to acknowledge it. We've got to acknowledge that this country, what it was built upon, that, that slavery was one of, the worst sins that have been committed upon a population of people. And we've got to understand that. We've got to deal with that, and we've got to reckon with that, because if we don't, it is just going to continue on and continue on. And so we've got to learn from the past in order for us to be able to move forward in the future. And I know that for some people, these conversations are uncomfortable, but we have to have the uncomfortable conversations. We have to be willing to listen to people that you may not necessarily listen to on an everyday basis. You may have to take a back seat, because right now, like, some people's voices may not be as important to the conversation as other people's voices are. And so this is a time that, like I said, we are having hard conversations. We are recognizing what is going on, and we are demanding change. Just here in Nashville, last Thursday, we had, I think, 4, 5, 6 teenagers organize a rally that had well over 10,000 people, and it got national coverage. And so, yeah, so we're having people, and I mean, there were all kinds of people that were at the rally. I wasn't able to attend because we were doing something on Zoom then, but it's just been just amazing to see the number of people that are coming out and that are just outraged and are demanding change. And so I'm hoping that this is going to transfer into people showing up to vote in August, and that we're going to continue and keep that same energy and vote in November as well too, because it is definitely time for a change on every single level.
And your primary is on August 6th, right?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, you heard it here. Keendra Hayes is the American story in all its evil at times, and all its beauty, and all its glory. And we are living at a time where the worst of America is on full display, and the best of America is on full display. And Keendra Hayes has known both, and she has lived through both. And I have tremendous respect for you, Keendra, and I can't imagine that everybody who has heard you tonight, everybody's heard you on your campaign does not share my respect, but also my hope for my country. Sure, it's an American issue. It's injustice for all. And it's time for this generation to decide for ourselves, do we or do we not mean that? Justice for all. Because the strength of a nation does not lie in our armies or our material wealth. It lies in our principles. And sometimes generations are called on to take a stand for those principles. And as my father used to say when I was a child, if they're coming for anybody, they could someday come for you. So
exactly.
if there is injustice, as Martin Luther King said, if there's injustice anywhere, it is a threat to justice everywhere.
Exactly.
We can have Keendra Hayes in Congress. We can have her. Jim Cooper has been there for 24 years, and he's done what he has done, and he has been the democratically elected representative, and good for him. And it's time for change in America, and it's time in the Democratic Party. There's going to be a Democrat. The Democrats will win this district. Let's have a new Democratic Party, can we please? Can we just have a new birth of freedom? Can we allow in the voices of women, the voices of a Black woman like you are, Keendra, who can speak from an experience that is so important. So much of what you heard Keendra say tonight, wouldn't it be beautiful to have her saying that on the floor of the House of Representatives? Too many times, you know, it's too easy to get cynical today. Too easy to say, it's hopeless. But if this woman cannot just surrender to cynicism, if this woman can stand on hope, if this woman can stand on, but we can change it. You know, too many people say, forget it, the system's so corrupt. I say all the time, the fact that the system's corrupt is not a reason to abandon it, it's a reason to change it, to transform it. And no one can say that with more moral authority than Keendra Hayes. Keendra, I wish you the best. I hope that people will continue to send around this recording. I want everybody to remember it's going to be on Facebook. It is now on my Instagram page, on the progressivecandidatesummit.com, on Twitter, on YouTube. Send it around and tell people. Any final words you have to say, Keendra? You've been so eloquent here tonight.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you again for inviting me to be on tonight. And thanks for everyone that have tuned in and everyone that has donated this far. You know, there are several other issues that I have on my campaign page. So please go to my page at www.keendahaynes.com. And you can find out more information about my story, more information about my issues. And of course, there's a way that you can donate and also sign up to get our newsletters and to be involved in our campaign, because
people who aren't in your district can still phone bank, et cetera, for you. And they're on your website, people know how.
Yes.
One question for you. How old are you?
I will be 42 June 29th.
Wow, I thought you were much younger. Wow.
I will be 42 at the end of the month. Yes.
I hope that you have enjoyed the Progressive Candidate Summit, what we have done so far. I've enjoyed it. I have really learned listening to all of these candidates, meeting them. I think it's been very clear why I support them, and there are more. I want to thank Wendy Zoller, who did a marvelous job producing this. I want to thank Lauren Selsky, who's helped me. I want to thank Scott Katamas for helping us as well. To all of the candidates, I want to thank you who have contributed financially. We look at the progressivecandidatesummit.com and we see the donations come in to these candidates. And I want to thank the wonderful Howie Klein, his blog, Down with Tyranny. This man is on it when it comes to all of these races. That's certainly why I met you, Keendra. He's one of the biggest champions. I will continue. Wendy needs a few down days to figure it out. I have some ideas of people coming up. In the meantime, all my love, my best wishes to you, Keendra, and to all of you. Thank you so much for participating in the summit, for coming to know these candidates, and for supporting them. Much love to you. I will talk to you later, Keendra. I wish you the best.
Yes, thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.